Part 9, Chapter 9, The Beginning of the End. In the beginning, the Beatles loved being a band. They loved being famous. They went from being four poor teenagers to world stars. Fans adored them, and they had more money than they could ever hope to spend. John bought a Rolls Royce. It had a television and refrigerator in it. Paul also bought a fancy car, an Aston Martin. George got a house and had painters decorate it with flowers. When the money first began to pour in, I'd go and buy 10 suits, a dozen shirts, and 3 cars, Ringo said. I spent money like it had just been invented. As time passed, they began to see the sour side of being so successful, of being the Beatles. They were expected to spend all of their time together. They were friends, sure, but they were getting older. They had families now, and didn't want to just hang out with the guys. So slowly they started to drift apart. They were already dressing differently. The times were changing. It would have been silly for the Beatles to show up in their matching colorless suits. The Beatles made sure to keep up with the latest styles. John let his hair grow long. He also grew a thick beard. He took to wearing a white suit. George and Ringo grew mustaches. Paul tried growing one, though he didn't keep it for long. They wore clothes with lots of style and lots of colors. This is how the hippies dressed. The band had done about 20 albums, more than 220 songs. Their next project was to record an album and make a movie at the same time. The idea was to show the world how the group worked so well together. Instead, Let It Be showed how tired the Beatles were of one another. Paul wanted to start playing concerts again, but nobody else did. George wanted more of his songs to appear on the album. The other Beatles said no. John wanted his new wife Yoko Ono at the recording studio all the time. The others didn't want her there. Yoko Ono was an experimental artist. She wasn't interested in drawing pretty pictures of flowers or of horses running through mountain streams. Her artwork was unusual, very unusual. For example, she once made a film of a fly walking up and down a naked person's body. Yoko also had very strong opinions. She thought the other Beatles should listen to John more. During the recording of Let It Be, Yoko sat next to John. She listened to the band discuss how to play the music. When there was a disagreement, she would whisper in John's ear or grieve her opinion. To the group. She loved John and always took his side. The other Beatles thought that outsiders, even wives, didn't belong in the studio. It had always been just the 4 of them there. Let It Be turned into a big mess. By the end, the Beatles were barely talking to one another. They couldn't finish the album. When the movie was released, almost no one went to see it. The Beatles didn't even show up for the opening. Paul felt bad. He didn't want to let the band break up like this. Yes, they had grown apart, but they still cared about one another. Paul convinced his bandmates to make one more album. This time, he said, there would be no fighting. It would be just like the old days, and it was. They named that album Abbey Road after the address of their recording studio. Everyone, even Ringo, who didn't have a very good voice, got a chance to sing. The album was released, and almost immediately it went to #1 on the charts. Critics everywhere raved about its beauty. Then news came that stunned the world. It was over. The Beatles were breaking up.